So what does overwhelm look like? So overwhelm looks like, we've talked about overwhelm a lot. You will notice we talked about it last week. We're talking about it this week. We got off on our scheduled topics. So what does overwhelm look like for an ADHD entrepreneur specifically? Because it can manifest in so many ways for us. So it's having difficulty prioritizing, understanding that you have to organize tons of different tasks. Because as an ADHD entrepreneur, we wear 9,000 hats. Easily 9,000 hats every single day in our businesses, which can be amazing for our ADHD brains. We can go all over the place and do all of these different kinds of tasks, but it can also be extremely overwhelming and frustrating at times because we're doing 9 million different tasks and it's hard to keep track of all of these things and it's hard to prioritize what needs to be done. It can lead to being a to-do list that seems like it's never ending. It can lead to that physical overwhelm and the becoming sick or burnt out because have such a hard time prioritizing the tasks that you just don't know what to do and you don't have the clarity on what to do. So you get lost into this never-ending cycle of not doing anything maybe because of your not knowing what to do. Another thing that overwhelm can look like is inconsistent in your productivity. You have intense hyperfocus and then you have intense feelings of procrastination, feeling overwhelmed, getting scattered, more and more scattered, and being inconsistent can then contributes to overwhelm. And then when overwhelm, it gets in place, you can't prioritize, you are inconsistent with what you're doing. So it's this like never ending cycle of overwhelm that's looming because you're inconsistent with the productivity. And this is why we say consistency decreases overwhelm, increases productivity, increases, we've talked about that so many times. But overwhelm can also look like time management issues. You may underestimate your time. You may overestimate your time, or you may have a hard time even initiating a task in order to understand that you have the things. Yes. So Jessica says, I'm awful, especially when it comes to bigger projects. I work on one project, then I get stuck, then I start a different project, then I get stuck, and then repeat 5 times for every project. Yeah, this is where that planning out your tasks ahead of time and writing down all of the steps that I talk about is so important because then you're less likely to get stuck because there's not decision fatigue. And that's the next piece of what overwhelm can cause. Overwhelm can cause decision fatigue. And decision fatigue, it can trigger when you're having decision fatigue issues, it can trigger impulse control issues, it can trigger overspending, it can trigger the never even getting things done at all. It can trigger emotional dysregulation. It can trigger sensory overload. And that's just from the decision-making pieces. And then being indecisive can lead to analysis paralysis and that perfectionism that because we're extremely smart. We're overachievers. We're geniuses 99% of the time until we aren't. Everybody's like that, even neurotypical people though. So just so you know, but overwhelm causes so many things. Decision-making issues, sensory overload, and sensory overload can look like so many different things for everybody. Delegation, not being able to release control on some of the things that need to be done in order for you to find success. You keep yourself, and this is why we say that overwhelm is a self-sabotage cycle, because when you're in overwhelm, you don't reach out to the help. You try to huddle into and control things more, and the more it's very normal to not feel like a genius all the time. And I don't know who just said that, and I want to crack up badly. You don't have to be a genius all the time. I promise that's not a thing that you have to be all the time. You can feel like a total moron. It's fine to feel like a moron. It's fine to have out of sight, out of mind. But when we get stuck in those things, it contributes to the overwhelm. Overwhelm, again, it causes emotional dysregulation. It causes decision-making issues. It causes the procrastination. It causes the sensory overload. It causes time management. It causes you to be inconsistent in your business. It causes you to not be able to prioritize. So when you get to overwhelm mode, you're already too late to recover. Not too late completely, but you're almost too late to recover and get back on track easily. So that's why everything that we teach around here is about not getting into overwhelm mode, to not self-sabotage yourself consistently. And yes, overwhelm, well, there are pieces of overwhelm that as an ADHD adult that we can't control, we can control how far it affects us. We absolutely can take control of that. And that's why I teach functional chaos, because we have chaos. We are chaotic. We are wonderfully and beautifully chaotic as ADHD women, especially. ADHD men have a very different way that functional chaos, what that looks like, but you can get out of it. It is absolutely something that you can get yourself out of with the proper tools. And the proper tools look different for all of us. And that's part of why at BSEA, we're teaching you how to overcome overwhelm for your brain. Your brain we're all beautifully and vastly different, beautifully the same and vastly different from one another. We struggle with the same results, but how we get to those results is very, very different. So that's why we talk about so much around here. We talk about a belief becomes a thought becomes a behavior becomes an action, and that action becomes a result. What are your results? What is the belief that you have? Your belief that's causing you overwhelm could be very, very different from Jessica's or Avery's or mine or Rebecca's or. And all of the time, all of these things, that belief, this end result is still the results. We want that result, but how do we get there? And how does your brain work through each of those pieces? And that's what we're going to talk about this week. I'm only coming in to do this really, really quick thing of what overwhelm looks like. I want you to understand what overwhelm looks like. So share below with me, how does overwhelm affect you? I'm going to write something really quick. I've almost done writing it. I've got to edit it real quick. But I'm going to drop a post in here. Share below that post what overwhelm piece is the thing that really keeps you stuck most of the time. Is it sensory overload? Is it decision making? Is it task initiation? What are the things of overwhelm that really, really affect you? We want to ask these questions this week. So on our Q&A on Thursday, that we can really dive in and help you do all of those things. 83 tabs open on my computer, all categorized, grouped, and all open for a purpose. Exactly, Jessica. Mine looks like that 99% of the time too. If you have any questions at all, what overwhelm looks like, and you're not quite understanding, please ask below. I can't wait to hear from you. Have an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you Thursday at 11 a.m.